Our daily Bible reading for November 18th. Our reading today comes from Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10, we'll begin reading in verse 1 down through verse 14. For since the law has but a shadow of the good things to come instead of the true form of these realities, it can never, by the same sacrifices that are continually offered every year, make perfect those who draw near. Otherwise would they not have ceased to be offered, since the worshippers, having once been cleansed, would no longer have any consciousness of sins. But in these sacrifices there is a reminder of sins every year. For it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Consequently, when Christ came into the world, he said, "Sacrifices and offerings you have not desired, but a body have you prepared for me. In burnt offerings and in sin offerings you have taken no pleasure." Then I said, "Behold, I have come to do your will, O God, as it is written of me in the scroll of the book." When he said above, "You have neither desired nor taken pleasure in sacrifices and offerings and burnt offerings and sin offerings, these are offered according to the law," then he added, "Behold, I have come to do your will." He does away with the first in order to establish the second. And by that will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. And every priest stands daily at his service, offering repeatedly the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. But when Christ had offered for all time a single sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God, waiting from that time until his enemies should be made a footstool for his feet. For by a single offering he has perfected for all time those who are being sanctified. A few thoughts for today. There are few people in this world who enjoy paperwork. It is an endless job and one that few seem to stay on top of. Duplicates, triplicates, carbon copies, memos, reports, updates, contracts, and on it goes. A never-ending trail of paper. When I think of the old law and its sacrifices, it brings to mind the endless parade of animals brought to slaughter. The logistics are mind-boggling. Think of the salt, the oil, the wood required each day. An entire economy built around just the sacrifices. It is easy to see how a corrupted few would find a way to make money off these sacrifices, such as those whom Jesus cast out of the temple in John 2. The writer of Hebrews proceeds to show the ineffectiveness of the law's ability to take away sins. He then shows from the messianic prophecies of Psalm 40 that it was his desire for Christ Jesus to come and take away sins, verses 5 through 9. It was God's desire that these sacrifices should end, for he took no delight in them, because they did not take away sins, but were a reminder of their sins year after year. What a beautiful way the writer weaves this tapestry of explanation of the prophecies from the Old Testament. As our passage for the day concludes, we find the idea of supremacy of the one true sacrifice, Jesus, over those sacrifices offered day after day after day in verse 10. The term he uses, "once for all," in verses 10 and again in 12, gives us a sense of the power of his sacrifice in that it was able to do once what myriads of animal sacrifices could never do. How endless those rivers of blood must have seemed to the priests. The very thought of our perfection is one that is hard to comprehend. Yet it is a fact verified in our verses today. To be sanctified is to be made holy, consecrated, and set apart for sacred service. That's what we are. We may not think of ourselves in those terms because we continue to sin, but the blood of Christ continually cleanses those whom he has redeemed. A question of the day: are you thankful that you are now under the new law of Christ rather than the old law of sacrifices? And finally, a thought to meditate on today. Jesus is now seated at the right hand of God and intercedes for you and me. His perfect sacrifice is bringing perfection into our lives. Those are our thoughts for today, November 18th.